Good morning. It's March 18th, 2016, 10:32 in the morning, and I'm going to fiddle around with my Java programming book, Head First Java here. And let me go inside of my digital notebook here, and let me right-click Open Java.html, edit with Notepad++. Make that a little smaller. Also, let me go in Box, and Chapter 5 is what I'm working on right now. I'd like to right-click and hit Group by Type. That way I have all my ping images together, all my MP3s together, and all my HTML web pages together. It's a little easier for me to find what I'm looking for if I group them that way. Okay, what I'm working on, well, let me open up the page and show you where we are. My open java.html, this is my home page. This is what has basically the contents of what's going in my notebook, and when I click on different navigation areas it opens up a different page in an iframe. So I'm going to hit, and this right here is my Notepad++. I'm going to go run. I'm going to launch it in Chrome. And this is my digital notebook that I haven't really been working with for quite a while. I've got chapter 1 here. All my notes here are in web pages, and these links take you to all the web pages that are notes for chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and here we are in chapter 5. And this right here is the iframe that has a default image when the page first loads. And right now I want to go over this is the last set of notes that I did. It's showing you how to do prep code, test code, and then getting to your real code. Well, I want to go to the next level, which is going to show a combination of a simple.com class and then a simple.com test class, so that you can see if your functions, your various methods are working properly. So the real code method, check yourself, is that page. I want to copy it to create a new page. So I'm going to go inside my chapter 5 folder. I'm going to look for real code method, check yourself. Realcode.html is what it's referring to. I'm going to hit edit with Notepad, open that up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this empty space right here, and I'm going to hit File, Save As, and it's saving all my stuff into the chapter 5 folder as you see up here at the top. And I want to call this final code combined.html, because we're going to show both sets of code in the same little area here. Hit save. Now I've got final code combined.html. I'm going to go to real code, which represents the page that opens up right here. I'm going to copy and paste this whole page and just make the changes as needed. So I hit Control A to highlight everything, Control C to copy, then I click on final code that has nothing in it, and then I hit Control V and it's going to copy everything. So I'm done with the real code page. I'm not even going to go over it because I'm going to start a brand new one. And the things that I want to change, starting at the top, I'm not going to go into the styles, and I'm not going to go into the page scroll function either. But in my field set I've got a legend. If I just click on the real code method, check yourself, you'll see what I'm talking about. Right up here it says real code, and then there's a button that says scroll page and stop scroll page. Since I've copied and pasted this page, I need to change the name of the legend right here to match the page that I'm going to be working on right now, which I said final code combined. So right here in the legend, instead of the words real code, I'm going to say final code combined. And then I'm going to refresh that page and I'm going to refresh my Notepad++ code. Then I'm going to refresh the page itself. Now when I go down, well, actually you're not even going to see it because I didn't add it to my home page. See, I have to add another link here for the new page that I'm going to create. So let's do that. That's in my openjava.html file. And I'm not going to go over this code either because I've done it in previous videos. Again, I have not taken my styles out of all of these pages and put them into external style sheets. That will be something that I will do. I'm just not going to mess with it right now. In the body of this page that you're looking at that has all of the navigation, all the contents for the chapters that I'm creating, and then this iframe right here, that's all in this openjava.html. What I want to do is I want to find chapter 5, I want to find this last section right here, and I want to add a new one for the new clickable area for this navigation. Here's the iframe that says ID TV, name TV, source box / cover.html. I have another page called cover, and it's linking to this particular image. I could change that page to link to any image I want. At the current time, I have it showing a breakfast plate. Alright, here's my field set for chapter 1. That's way up here. Field set, the legend says chapter 1. You see chapter 1. Well, I'm not there, so I need to move down until I see chapter 5. Chapter 1. Of course, it's going to be at the bottom. Right here's chapter 5. That's what I'm working on right now. Still, after all these months. Right here, before the end of the ordered list and the end of the field set tag, that's where I'm going to want to take this link and I'm going to want to copy and paste it and then make changes for the new page that I'm creating. So I'm going to copy this whole link. I'm going to hit enter a couple of times to give me some space, and I'll put it right about here. So I'll hit Control V. Okay, so inside here, inside right here, the words, I can move back down here. Instead of the words for the link saying real code method check yourself, I'm going to highlight that and backspace, and now I'm going to create the new page that I'm working on right now. Final code combined. Okay, so when I refresh it in Notepad and then refresh the page, voila, now you see a new link in my unordered, my ordered list, because there's numbers here. Final code combined. So now when I click this, the new page that I'm going to work on is going to be here. It's going to take the place of this breakfast plate. But I have to make some changes. Obviously, the href, the address of what the link is going to open for me is not going to be this same page, not realcode.html. That's what I copied. What I'm doing is this right here, finalcodecombined.html. So in my new link, I have to name that properly. And it's got to be spelled and capitalized in the exact same way. So we have final code combined.html. This, like I said, the name of this web page has to perfectly match this web page that I'm getting ready to create. It's got to match this tab perfectly, or it won't find it. I'm going to save it. Let's see. Do I have to change anything else? I have my list item on click, which changes the style background to yellow. I don't need to change that. Style border 10 pixels gray inset. I don't need to change that. All I needed to change was the name of the link and the name of the page that the link is going to open for me. Alright, so let me refresh this. Now when I click Final Code Combined, you're going to see this page that I changed the legend to Final Code Combined. Well, I got to change a lot more than that, because this whole code in this little section right here, public string check yourself, all that refers to this right here, because I did a copy and paste. So I'm going to have new code right here. I'm going to keep these green tables, tables with the green header, because these are the two classes I'm referring to, the simple.com on the left and the simple.com test on the right. So I'm going to leave these up here for reference, but like I said, all this has to be deleted. So let me go back into Final Code Combined. Okay, here I changed the legend, which you see, changed it right here, and the output right here. Input type button, I'm going to leave that, because this button right here that says scroll page and stop scroll, since I have kind of a long set of code, it's kind of nice to use this scroll page. Even though it may or may not be timed perfectly to the reading of it, I can always go back and fix that after the fact. Let me stop the scroll. Okay, so that's just showing you basically how to make a button that calls a function, and the value is the words that show on the button. And here's the other button right here next to it, input type button on click. Stop scroll, let's call on the stop scroll function. I'm not going to go over those either because those were done in previous videos. Value equals stop scroll, and you see up here stop scroll. Audio controls, I basically have this audio that I'm going to read. After this, it's right now I'm doing a video with Cam Studio free screen recording software. But when I get ready to create the audio of the new page I'm creating, I'm going to use Audacity. That's another free software that allows you to make recordings that are a lot lengthier, and you can work with them a little better. So that's the audio snippet. Here's the one table. This table right here is referring to this table right here, that code. And here's the other table. Everything in between those purple tags creates the table over here on the right, the simple.com test with that information. And I'm almost to the part that I'm going to change. My text area. That's all this stuff down here. That's my text area where I'm going to put my new code. Text area ID equals 1. It's disabled. It's disabled so that the user can't type anything in here. I'm just using it for display purposes because it makes it a lot easier. So everything in this text area from there to there, those purple tags, all that's going to be deleted. Oops. I'm going to start something new because I'm on a new page, so I've got new notes. So now that I've deleted that, when I click Final Code Combined again, you see the only thing that's left is the legend of the field set, the two buttons, the audio tag, and these two tables. And you can barely see this faint yellow border with a slightly darker grayish. That's my text area. Right now it's a blank text area. I'm getting ready to fill it up. So, starting on page 106 of my Head First Java college book, I'm going to create two classes. And these classes are going to be separated by a couple of horizontal rules so that there'll be lines to divide the two things. So I'm just going to create a couple horizontal rules right now. And I'll show you what that looks like. We save it there, click this again. Oh, that's right. It's not going to show up as a horizontal rule because I'm not creating this in the web page itself. I'm creating it inside of a text area. So what I want is whatever I want to literally show, then I can just do this. That will literally show up in the text area. That's why it's nice to use a text area, because it shows you literally what you want to output. And that is really pretty ugly because depending on the width of my window, this may go all the way across or it may not. So I might do something different, like a div that goes straight across to divide the two things. But for now, I'm just going to leave these so that you see the difference between the code that I'm going to type in for the simple.com, what this table is referring to, and then underneath it, the code for the simple.com test that this table refers to will be below this kind of like dotted, looks like tire tracks or whatever. So let's get to the code. All right, public class simple.com. And it'd be a lot easier if I open this up. Okay. This is just for display output, because if I really want this to work and show you the output, I'm going to copy and paste all of this into a .java file, and then I'll use my command window to run it, and that'll be in the next video, or the next right here I'm working on 8 final code combined. The next thing that I create is going to show the output, the actual Java output, not just what I'm doing here for a notebook. Anyway, let's get back to this code, public class simple.com. And we have to have our curly braces, and then underneath this space we'll have public class simple.com test. Okay, so this is going to basically be the code for both of those. Public class simple.com. Oops. Int array location cells. Here we're creating an array that's going to have integers, and we're going to name it location cells. We're also going to create another variable, int num of hits. Whoops, and we're going to set that equal to 0. Public void set location cells, and we're going to say int, the symbol for array, and locs. This is basically going to be the alias for this. Okay, we're protecting our variables up here. We're protecting our instance variables in our simple.com class. Up here we give them this name, but when we are going to use them in a method, this is kind of like an alias. So anyway, public void set location cells, this is a method that we're creating. And here we are going to set the actual private instance variable name. We're going to set that equal to our little alias here, int array locs, instead of int array location cells. Okay, so we do that quite easily. We put location cells equals, we're setting it equal to the name of the array, locs, or locs. I say locs because I know I'm talking about location cells. Okay, so that was this setter. Now let's do the next method, public string check yourself. Public, got a capitalized string, public string check yourself, and we're going to have a parameter here in parentheses. Whoops, wrong symbol. So here we're going to create that next method, and remember we want a parameter, and our parameter is going to be a string, and here string guess. That's what we're going to name that variable. And then inside there, this is our public string check yourself method that I went over in the previous page. This real code method check yourself that we went over, all of this code that I can't highlight, all of this stuff right in here belongs to the simple.com, and right here is the representation of that method. These tables are just representations of our class. It's showing us what our instance variables are, and it's showing us what our methods are. We have our instance variables named at the top, and then we have our methods named at the bottom. In the simple.com test, we indicated that we have no instance variables. We gave ourselves a note to ourselves. This is only used to test simple.com class to the left, and we basically indicated that we are going to use the public static void main string args execution statement in order to turn on the program basically, or start here. This is where you start, and this is what you do, starting in this file. Excuse me. Okay. So let me go back here to final code. This is what I'm working on right now that you don't see because I didn't refresh the page yet. If I refresh the page and hit this again, oh, you still can't see it because I didn't save it in Notepad++. I saved it. Now let me refresh the page and hit this again, and you'll see what I've started. This is what I just started so far. But eventually we'll have all the code to the public class simple.com, and we'll have all the code to the public class simple.com test. And then this video will be done, and then I'll work on copying all this information into a Java file and run it in the command prompt, and then I'll create another navigation area down here and another page right here to actually output that result. Alright, anyway, let's get back to my public string check yourself method. We're going to create an integer variable called guess. We're going to set that equal to integer.parse int, and in parentheses we are going to put what the user guesses. String guess. Okay, you see right here the check yourself method uses a parameter called string guess. Oh, I'm sorry. In the parse int, I don't need to say string again. We created string guess here as a string data type. So here I don't have to put the word string again. String guess has already been created, and it is created as a string data type. Because this is a string data type, this is basically what the user is going to be typing, their guess. We are going to parse it or change it from a string to an integer so that we can put that value in this variable that we created here as an integer. You can't take a string and make it an integer unless you do this right here in the middle. You have to parse it and change it into an integer. I need to hit pause for a second. I have a timer going off. Alright, I'm back. Let's see where I left off at. Yeah, let's get to this method here for our public class simple.com. We're working on the public string check yourself with the parameter string guess. Then we're creating a variable here, an integer variable with the name of guess, and we're going to put the value of string guess, which the user is going to type in. And when the user types something in to the command prompt, that's going to be a string data type. So in order for us to put the value of a string data type into the value of an integer data type, we have to use this little thing right here called integer parse. Okay, so the user types something in, we change it to an integer, and then we set that value into our new variable called guess. Okay, where am I? I'm on page 106 right now. And this is a statement, so we need to have a semicolon after it. We're going to create another, in this method, check yourself, a variable called result. It's going to be a string. The data type is string. The name of the variable is result. And we are going to set that to an initial string called miss. A string is a word, okay? Basically any set of letters, digits. You can't do math with it. It's a string. So everywhere at this point that the variable called result is, the word miss is going to be what its value is, okay? And so right now we have a variable called result, and it's going to have a value of the word miss. Next, in this same method, I'm going to go down a couple of spaces. We're going to do a for loop. So we have for and then something, and then we have our set of curly braces here. It's going to be the meat. So for a condition, so as long as for whatever is going on in here, that many times we're going to do a loop. So for, I lost my place, int cell colon location cells. Okay, so we're going to be looping through the location cells array that we created up here. See how it's spelled exactly the same? And when I highlight on this in Notepad++, everywhere that's spelled exactly there the same, that's going to refer to that same variable that we created, which was an array. It's an array up here. It's an array of integer values. And here we took that array and we set it to this alias lokes. And let's see, what did the page say about this particular? What this means, this for int cell colon location cells, the book on 105. So you're supposed to read this for loop declaration as repeat for each element in the location cells array. Take the next element in the array and assign it to the int variable cell. So it's like we're creating an integer variable right here. This variable is called cell, and it's basically saying that for each time through the location cells array, for each element, we're going to put the value of that into this variable called cell. So it's a little complicated, but once you do anything in life over and over and over again, it becomes second nature. At the beginning, it's always strange. Okay, so for int cell location cells, we are going to do another if condition. If something happens, then we're going to do this. So if what is true, what's the condition for this if? Well, if guess is equal to cell, if the value of guess is equal to the value of cell, then we're going to do what's in this if. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our variable called result and we're going to reset that to a new value. The new value will be hit. And if we got a hit, then we're going to take our num of hits variable and we're going to increment that up by 1. So if it starts off as 0, which as you see we created num of hits up here and we set it to 0, it's an integer, so it gets a numeric value. It's originally set so everywhere up here that you would see num of hits, the value of it would be 0. But down here, if the guess and the cell in the location array are equal to one another, then we are going to change the value of our variable result from miss to hit, and then our num of hits, instead of having a value of 0, it's going to go up by 1, so it's going to go from 0 to 1 right there. And then what would happen after that is we will break out. We will break out of the loop. So this right here is the end of the if, and this right here is the end of the for loop. So I can bring that space in. End for loop, just to make it a little more. Okay, so now what are we going to do? Now we're going to have another if condition. If something, then we're going to do something. So let's move those out of the way. If some condition is true, we're going to do something. Let's see what the condition is now. Again, I'm on page 106. If num of hits is the same as, is equal to location cells dot length. Remember, location cells is an array, and we're going to give it 3 numbers, so it's going to have 3 ints, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, or 3, 4, 5, or whatever, anything between up to 7. So if num of hits keeps going up, It starts at 0. If they guess another one that happens to match what's in the array, then that goes from 0 to 1. And if they guess another one that's correct that's in the array, then it's going to go up to 2. Well, there's only 3 elements in the array, so once this goes up to 3, when the value of num of hits is equal to the length of the location cells array, which will be 3, we will have 3 elements in that array. So if this is true, that means that we have exhausted or killed the battleship. Even though we're not calling them battleships, they're calling them .coms here to make it more internet-ish instead of talking about battleships. But if you get all 3 and they're equal, then you're going to change the results to kill, because it was originally result. Where's result first? Originally result was created with a value of the word miss. Then if we got a hit, if the guess and the cell are equal to each other, then we gave the name, the variable result, a new value, the word hit. Now, if we got all 3, then we're going to change, instead of result being equal to hit, we are going to call it kill. It's a kill because we've got everything that was in the array. We've guessed all of them. Okay, so then that if condition is done, and the last thing, print line. What do we want to print? We want to print our result, the value of result. And then we have return result. And this closing curly brace was the end of the method, and this is the end of the class. This method being the public string check yourself method. All of this. Okay. Let me give that a space. So that's all that the simple.com. This right here, the representation of simple.com class, is going to have 2 things. It's going to have an array called location cells and an integer array called location cells and an integer called number of hits. It's going to have 2, and that's what this is right here. Here's our simple.com. This is the actual Java code. This right here is just the representation. This is kind of like you're brainstorming. Okay, what do I want a class to have? Well, we're going to give it a name. We're going to give it some instance variables, and we're going to do something with those instance variables with some methods. And this right here is the Java syntax that is actually the actual real deal, the actual code to this representation. So here we're showing our 2 instance variables. Here we're creating our 2 instance variables. Here we're showing that we want to create a method, and we said what value it's going to be. It's going to be a string, and it's going to have a parameter that's also a string. And then we're going to also have this void set location cells that, based on this right here, it will set the location cells. So first off, the simple setter, the void set location cells with a parameter of int array loc, is right here. This is how you do that. Public void set location cells with a parameter of int array locs, and location cells equals locs. Here it just says loc. I could change that to locs because it would represent it better. So let me go to that page and go to the table right here. Instead of it saying int array loc, let me change that to locs. It's not necessary. This is just a representation, but it makes more sense to have it match better. So let's refresh the page. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Here's our setter method in the table, and here's our setter method in Java. Public void set location cells, parameter of int array locs, and inside the meat of the curly braces we are setting the private location cells to locs, the alias, for data preservation purposes or data hiding. Here is our string check yourself, string guess being the parameter, and here's the actual Java code that goes from here all the way to there. Public string check yourself, the parameter string guess, int guess equals integer.parse int string guess. Again, we're reading this particular statement from right to left. String guess comes in, integer.parse changes it from a string to an int, and then it is put with the equal sign as a value for the variable guess, which is an integer data type. Then we have string result equals miss. We're creating a variable that's a string. The name is result, and we're giving it a value of miss. For int cell and location cells, if guess is equal to cell, they both have the same value, then we're going to change the value of result from miss. We're going to change its value to hit. Then we're going to take our number of hits that we created originally as 0 up here. We're going to increment by 1, so now the value of num of hits is going to be 1. Then we're going to break out of this loop. Okay, when we break out of the loop, means that we go straight down to the next condition. If num of hits is equal to the location cells dot length, then the result is kill. Well, the first time that you get a hit, the number of hits is only from 0 to 1. So the location cells that was created is not going to be equal to num of hits at that time. So this condition would be false, and since that condition will be false, we will not change the value of result from hit to kill because it's not appropriate at this time. It's not correct, it's not accurate. This has to be true in order to do this. So this line of code will be ignored, and we will go down here to the system.out.println. The value of result for the first iteration of this loop, the first time the user guesses correctly, would be hit if the cell and the guess match. If the cell and the guess don't match, then it would be miss. It would still be miss. It would stay miss, because remember, when you have for loops and if conditions, if conditions, this condition has to be true for anything in this curly braces to execute. If this isn't true, well, it's just going to ignore everything. It's just, if this isn't true, then all this gets ignored, and you're at the end of the if and you're at the end of the loop. So then what happens is it can ask this, which will also be false if they didn't guess the right number. If the number they guessed is not part of the elements in that array that we created, then this gets ignored. So if they guess a false guess, then the result is going to be what we first created it as, a miss. But if they get a hit, then the word hit will be here. And as they keep guessing, once they eventually guess 3 correct guesses, then the value of result that we're going to print out is going to say kill. That's how we get this return result. We're going to return to the caller. Here's the end of the method and the end of the class. So there is all the code for this simple.com table representation. Now let's do the code for our simple.com test representation. It's going to have no instance variables. It's only used to test this, and it's going to have the public static void main string args execution statement that turns the code on. So we start off with public class simple.com test, and there's our curly braces that we started off with. Let me get back to the code in the text area to do that. Here I told you that file will be underneath this dotted line. Okay, so public class simple.com test inside our curly braces. This is very simple. We have our public static void, void main, and then in parentheses, and here's the the curly braces for that. This is going to be the end of the main method, because it is a method. End method main, and this curly brace will be the end of the class, the class called simple.com test. Okay, so let's go back to our main method, and in our public static void main string args, we are going to create simple.com. Okay, this is how we create an object of the class. Our class, our main class, is this here on the left. So in our test class, we need to create an object of this class. And how we do that is we use the name of the class, simple.com, which is what this is. And then we give it a variable name. So we have simple.com, we're going to just call it dot. You can call it anything you want. Equals new simple.com. Then you put in these empty parentheses here and a closing semicolon. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the int array locations, and we're going to set it in these curly braces. So here we're actually going to, this is the secret. This is the secret that the user is going to try to guess. We're going to set this to whatever we want. The book set it to 2, 3, and 4. So in our locations array, an array called locations, we have set the secret integers that they're supposed to guess, and we set it to 2, 3, and 4, and you can change that to anything you want. We're currently trying to go we're asking the user to just guess from 0 to 7, and so we're only going to put those values in here at this time. Then you're going to use the name of the object that you just created, dot. I'm going to use that to access the things that we created in simple.com. So we have dot, and then we're using a dot, and we're going to grab that set location cells method, setter method, and in our parameter we're going to use locations that we just created here. Here we're setting, here we gave this integer array called locations, we gave it 3 elements, 2, 3, and 4. So there's 2, 3, and 4 elements that belong to locations. And here we're using that. The value of locations is 2, 3, and 4, and we are using the method from the simple.com, not the simple.com test, to set what we're just now creating here. Alright, so there's locations, there's a semicolon to end that. We're going to create a variable called user guess. It's going to be string, and here we're going to create a fake guess of 2, which in our case is going to be a hit because it matches one of the elements in locations. So here the user isn't actually making a guess. Here we're creating code to represent a fake user guess. If we were to change this to something other than 2, then our end result would be a miss. But since we are creating it to actually match one of the actual elements, our method will show result being a hit. Okay, so then we have string result. We're going to set that equal to the dot again. We're going to use the dot object that we created with the dot operator. Here we're using dot to call set location cells. Here the dot with a dot operator, we're going to call check yourself method. And remember, the check yourself method had a parameter, so we need to put something, we need to put an argument to that parameter. And the argument here is going to be user guess. And we created user guess here, and we created it with a value of 2. So here, when you see the word user guess, you're really seeing the value of 2 at this point in time. Okay, so then there's user guess, and there's the end of that statement. End method main, end class. So to go over this again really quick, public class simple.com test, public static void main simple.com dot equals new simple.com. Int array locations equals 2, 3, and 4. Dot set location cells, and the argument to set location cells is the variable locations, which refers to this. And we're going to create string user guess, and we're going to set it to 2. Then we're going to use the dot operator, with the dot operator to call the check yourself method, and we're going to put in our user guess, which is a 2 right here. And then we're going to stuff that in this variable that we're creating called result. So now when you see the word result, you are going to have the value of user guess. So user guess and result are going to be 2 at this point. Now I'm going to stop this, and then of course you've got the end method and end class. I'm going to stop this here, and the next navigation that I create will be 9, and it will be Java output. I believe I'll call it Java output. And what I will show in here will either be a video of me doing it in Java, showing you this in Java, or maybe some screen prints of the output, but it won't just be an HTML file. It'll be in a Java file so that you can see that this code, this syntax is actually functioning in Java. So if I save my code here and I refresh up here and click the page I just created, now you see final code combined, the 2 table representations of the 2 files, and the code for public class simple.com, which is this one, all of that, and then some dotted lines, so you have a little visual separation there, and then the code for the public class simple.com test, and then everything in those curly braces. So that's going to conclude this part. Next, we'll see it in action.